morning, everyone. Welcome to the May 22nd, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, there are speaker request forms to the left side of the room. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the May 8th, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes is hereby opened.
Motion to approve.
All right, Vince made the motion to approve those minutes and Karen seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning, Chair, Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustment. Item number 2 before you is a variance request to reduce the minimum required parking from 348 spaces to 146 spaces for outdoor music events. This property is located at the Robbinsdale Entertainment Center at 803 East St. Patrick Street. This property is currently zoned general commercial district. Future land use of this property is mixed use commercial. And access to this property is from East St. Patrick Street via 2 existing approaches. East St. Patrick Street is classified as a principal arterial street on the city's major street plan. What they are proposing to do here is they are proposing to hold outdoor music events starting June 5th of this year and ending on August 28th of this year. They will be holding these events every Thursday evening from 6:30 to 9:30, and these will be located in a portion of the parking lot on the west side of the property. You can see it outlined here in this pink area. So that area that will be enclosed for the outdoor music events is approximately 6,934 square feet. It will be surrounded by 4-foot tall temporary safety fencing each week. And based on the existing uses that are on this property, currently there is a 16-lane bowling alley, a lounge with a casino and an outdoor patio, a restaurant, a 3-chair salon, and then the associated parking lot. When we look at parking requirements, we are looking at a cumulative calculation of the parking requirement for each specific use. And then we total those all together. So for those existing uses that are on the property, by parking calculation, they are required to have a minimum of 175 parking spaces. Currently, they have 177 parking spaces on the property, so they do have sufficient parking to meet the existing uses that are on this property currently. The outdoor music events that they're proposing to bring in require an additional 173 parking spaces. 173 parking spaces based on code. So they will be deficient of the parking requirement for these outdoor music events by 202 parking spaces. They have indicated that the bowling alley and the salon will be closed for these outdoor music events. The bowling alley will close at 5 and the salon will close at 2 on the Thursdays where these outdoor music events take place in an effort to help reduce that parking demand and kind of mitigate that parking deficiency. Even with that, taking into account that consideration of the reduced parking demand with those 2 uses being closed, they would still be required to have 251 parking spaces, so they would still be deficient of the parking requirement even with that consideration by 105 parking spaces. They have indicated that every patron that comes to these outdoor music events will be required to obtain a wristband upon entrance, and they are going to limit the capacity of these events to 300 people total on the property. So that includes anybody who is outside at the event, inside in the lounge, inside in the restaurant, inside in the casino. Total people on the property will be capped at 300. They have also indicated that some of the surrounding businesses have allowed them use of their parking facilities, one of them being Boyd's Drug Mart, which is located just down the street. Let me get back to, so Boyd's Drug Mart is located here. They've indicated that Hio Mechanical has allowed them use of their parking space or parking spaces, which that property is located right here. And they have also indicated that Redeeming Grace Church has allowed use of their parking lot as well. Redeeming Grace is located across East St. Patrick Street. They have recognized that that is not an ideal situation with regard to safety of crossing East St. Patrick Street. There are no crosswalks in that area. So the applicant has indicated that they do understand that there is a concern for utilizing that parking area, and they have indicated that they will not advertise or promote parking in that parking area. So what we look at with these variances is we are looking at whether or not they meet the criteria for approval. So one of the criteria that we're looking at is whether or not there are special circumstances or conditions that would warrant approval of a variance. In this case, this property is two separate parcels comprised of 2.72 acres in total. Like I said before, there's currently several uses existing on this property, and the parking is adequate for those existing uses. So there is no special circumstances or conditions that would support approval of a variance request. The next thing that we're looking at is there deprivation of reasonable use if the grant or if the variance is not granted. As we're looking at it, again, there's multiple uses existing on the property, adequate parking for those, and they will be deficient of the parking requirement by 202 parking spaces, 105 parking spaces, even with the reduction that's looked at with the closure of the bowling alley and the salon. We're also looking at whether or not this is the minimum adjustment necessary. They currently can have live music shows, and they do hold live music shows within the lounge area on a regular basis. So that use can already exist within the structure on the property, just at a lower capacity, as that would be limited to what their maximum occupancy within the lounge area is. So the outdoor use is an additional use that would affect additional surrounding properties and uses out, since it is an outdoor event. So what we were looking at is the placement of this outdoor music event. I'll go back to the site plan here. As you can see, where they're going to locate this outdoor music event, this will create a one-way traffic circulation through the parking lot. You can kind of see the arrows that they're showing here. So they would come in on this eastern entrance, come down, filter through the rear parking area, and then come back out in between the buildings and leave through the west entrance. So it does impact the internal traffic circulation of the parking lot and reduces it to one-way traffic circulation. We're also looking at, this is in pretty close proximity to several well-established residential areas to the south. I do want to point out that these residential areas were just outside of the 250-foot notification requirement, so the residential areas did not get notification letters of the variance. But we do look at that in terms of the noise that will produce for those residential areas. That outdoor area the applicant has indicated will be set up to create somewhat of a noise barrier to those properties to the south. You can kind of see the stage would be down here. They've indicated that they will place like a semi-trailer behind here to try to create a sound barrier. However, wind patterns can still carry noise down into that residential area and into the surrounding neighborhoods where it's not necessarily intended to go, but it will carry. So that is something that we looked at. Additionally, the security of an outdoor music event. The applicant has indicated that they will have staff on site directing traffic and also providing on-site security. However, it is hard to mitigate overflow parking. Once you tell overflow attendees to go park somewhere else, it's really hard to effectively monitor those off-street parking and make sure that they're parking where they're supposed to and not overflowing into neighborhoods or business parking lots that have not provided permission to utilize their parking areas. And in terms of safety, the police department has commented that outdoor events of this nature do require preemptive collaboration and communication with them to ensure that there is an adequate level of safety and security, not only for the attendees of the outdoor event, but also for the surrounding neighborhood. So the police department has asked or does require that in order to provide that level of safety, they would like to review and approve an alcohol security and safety plan for the outdoor music events, and also due to the complaints that are received regarding noise, traffic, and parking issues associated with similar outdoor events like this, they have requested that information or surveys conducted by the applicant be provided regarding support from the surrounding residences and businesses. The applicant did provide some letters of acknowledgement from some of the surrounding businesses. They provided those yesterday. There have not been any acknowledgement or approval or consent letters from any of the residential property owners, at least not that I've seen. I do also want to point out that we did receive a letter of opposition from a business property owner directly across the street on East St. Patrick Street, directly to the north, with concerns about the noise, the parking on in their parking facility, and other concerns. So staff looked at this in its entirety in terms of what they're proposing, what this would leave for parking deficiency, and what adverse impacts this could potentially have. This is looking at the parking lot where those outdoor music events would take place. This is another direction. So those outdoor music events would be back here in this area in that fenced off section. There again, this is looking more towards the rear parking lot. So circulation would go here, down through this, kind of around here and back. This is their rear parking lot. This is the exit. So the one way would come this way and they would exit here through in between those two buildings out the west approach, or the east approach, excuse me. This is looking down East St. Patrick Street. And the other direction down East St. Patrick Street, this is west down East St. Patrick Street. This is a little bit closer image of the parking lot in relation to some of those residential structures. You can see this is a residence back here, and all those residential structures kind of are along in over here on the south side of East Mead Street, which is just on the other side of that vacant piece of property right there. This is to show you the buffer of the 250 feet of where the notification letters were required to be sent to. The surrounding neighborhoods are in this area and down in this area down here. So you could see that the surrounding neighborhoods were just outside that 250-foot buffer for requirement of public notification. So staff is recommending denial of this variance request based on the criteria that there are no special circumstances, that reasonable use of the land exists with the existing uses that are on there, and the addition of outdoor music events does not meet the minimum adjustment necessary requirement. This is not the minimum adjustment necessary, as they can currently hold live music shows within the lounge without the need for a variance, and they have sufficient parking for that use. Like I mentioned before, deficient of the minimum parking requirement by 202 parking spaces by code, 105 parking spaces with the reduction for the bowling alley and the salon being closed. And the adverse impacts of noise and security cannot be effectively mitigated or controlled. Neither can overflow parking be controlled to prevent people from overflow parking onto neighboring residential streets or properties that have not provided consent. So again, staff is recommending denial. I will stand for any questions. The applicant is in the audience as well.
Thank you. Vicki?
First, thank you, Cassie. That was a great presentation and a lot of detail. If you could go to the aerial that shows the property in relationship to Boyd's and to Height Mechanical. Thank you. So that identifies the subject property. And then if you could you put your cursor on Boyd's?
Boyd's is right here.
We got a letter from, that was signed by Brandon Johnson on behalf of Boyd's Drug Mart, noting that they would share their 130 parking spaces that's on that property. Unfortunately, for that parking to count, it has to be a formal shared parking agreement. The city must be a party to it so that they don't have the ability to null and void that agreement without city approval. We also checked under the ownership of Fedora Properties LLC, the properties listed under that, and state records show that the authorizing person for signature is Judy Jeffrey. And that's not to say that Brandon wouldn't have the authority if someone in the company authorized him, but that doesn't meet our parking requirement. Same thing with Height. We've not had an opportunity to look at site plans on both Height and Boyd's to see what is their parking requirement. Does the parking that they have meet design standards? Heights is legal non-conforming, but I don't believe it's designed where it can count as legal parking. In relationship to the letter that was sent by Dave and Lori Jensen, they own the property at 802 East St. Patrick Street. If you could put your cursor on that one.
It's up here.
It's under the ownership of On the Third Day LLC. They cite that there are instances right now with the existing uses that there's overflow parking and that there are individuals that park on their property without permission, block their entrance, and then at times there are intoxicated individuals that hang out in the parking lot, and it creates an unsafe environment for them. We see this as a great fun opportunity for a lot of folks to enjoy. We have some wonderful summer nights here in Rapid City. It's just difficult when the site itself doesn't have the sufficient parking and when there is proximity to residential. When the winds prevail, depending upon what direction they are, that sound will carry. And I think they've done a great job trying to set up the stage and park the trailer where it would be an impediment to those properties to the south. But when the winds are coming north to south, those of us who live even significantly further south than this property, when the festival is going on in the downtown area in the summertime, we hear that music like it's in our backyard. So the location and proximity, there's just no way to block that sound when the wind is going to carry it. I will remind you that here a couple years ago, you had a similar request before you for a bar that wanted to put music on the exterior in their very small patio, and it was up on Sturgis Road. Again, the residential properties in the area were 400 to 500 feet away. They didn't get noticed. We supported it. No one showed up to oppose it. It did get approved with strict restrictions on when it could actually have that music outside the building. And from the moment it opened to, unfortunately, the business didn't make it and they had to close, it was noise complaints. That neighborhood heard that noise, and you folks even deliberated on what's the elevation of that property in relationship to the commercial use to see whether or not it was a potential of being heard. It's just hard to guess it. This is a variance, so we have to really look at, is there reasonable use today? Have the nuisances been mitigated? And while we love the concept of what they want to do, we just couldn't bring you a recommendation to approve this one. So with that, we are requesting that it be denied.
Thanks, Vicki. Haven.
Yeah, thank you. I had a couple of questions, I guess. I can't separate this from the other request that's before the Planning Commission this morning, which is for the outdoor music. I guess that's really my question here. They have apparently an outdoor area where I'm assuming that they serve alcohol already. Would that be correct?
They do have an outdoor patio area. The lounge does have an outdoor patio where they do serve Yes, alcohol from the lounge. It is a small patio area over in this area right next to the entrance. It's a small outdoor patio area accessed from inside the lounge.
So they're here today, I guess, again, I have to mix up the two requests here today. One is to have an outdoor music event, and then that then triggers the requirement for the additional parking. I guess, first of all, I guess my question is what triggers the necessity for our approval of the outdoor music?
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
so they want to expand the on-sale liquor to the exterior of the building. Whenever you go to expand the footprint of the approved on-sale liquor use, it comes before the Planning Commission for review and approval. Even if that were interior to the building or exterior, those always come back to you for review and approval.
Thank you. Then, so what we're really, their request then is to expand the liquor, the area in which liquor can be served. But the outdoor music, is that, in other words, they could have outdoor music without any necessity of the city approval if they didn't serve alcohol?
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
That's a valid question. We do not have noise regulations that are black and white specific, but the inference is that it cannot exceed the acceptable dBA at the lot line, which is about 65 dBA, and this would far exceed it. So in essence, because it is live music that is going to be amplified, that would require your review and approval as well. If they were just expanding the patio, not doing the on-sale liquor portion of it, and the patio was large and people were just talking, that would not probably exceed that noise level. So we're sensitive to the noise, and I think the applicants have done a good job trying to show how they're trying to set it up so they're buffering that noise to the greatest degree possible. Unfortunately, it's just hard to do when the winds are prevailing from certain directions.
All right, Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a huge fan of outdoor events and live music. My wife and I really enjoyed summer nights. We're all looking to fill that void, I think, in our schedule for that kind of an entertainment. I'm hoping there'll be another option. This one doesn't look like that option to me. This looks like life safety, right? With all the detail that we've been provided and the circumstances we're looking at, I'm going to move denial on this one.
Are you making a motion, or are you?
Move denial, thank you.
Okay. Is there a second to Eric's motion to deny? All right. Karen seconded that motion. Further discussion on the motion now? Alicia?
Thank you. It sounds like we've sort of made a decision of the direction that we're going. I understand there's a lot of different considerations here, and that there is existing use of the land as it currently exists. I guess I wonder, similar to variances for additional garages or oversized garages where people have a garage and can have variable use, but a community member, culture and what people want to do with their property changes, and it seems like we're able to sometimes work to kind of find a middle ground. And thank you for explaining more about the parking, because in the report it did seem like the 130 spaces at Boyd's would cover the 105 short, but that there's some technicalities around legalities of who can approve the use of parking spaces. So that all makes sense to me. And I wonder about noise ordinances. I think they said they would perform until 9:30 p.m. Could there be a way that it could be 9, which is city ordinance, I believe, or it might be 10? No, 9? No city noise ordinance, okay. So anyway, I understand that this is complicated, and hope that sounds like where we can, it doesn't make sense to find a middle ground with this community, but hoping just to learn more in the future to figure out ways that, yeah, we can work with community members that want to expand their existing, use for community events. So thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
if you'll give me a little leniency here. Number one, I know we have a motion on the floor. If we could let that motion just stand, we do need to take comment from the applicants, and we haven't done that yet. But I did want to comment on where it is appropriate to have outdoor musical venues and on-sale liquor as a part of it. When you look at the definition of our central business district and the creation of Memorial Park, and what we want it to do is host those large community events, the residential components that are in our downtown area right now are already above bars and restaurants. Those that choose to live there typically don't have families. They don't have backyards that they're trying to enjoy. And so when we have these outdoor events in that downtown core, it has a minimal impact on those that have chosen to live in that festive environment. When we try to take these into the community, where we do have residential in close proximity, and Robbinsdale is a very popular area. And well, it should be. There's a lot of entertainment in that building. It's beautifully managed. The difficulty is, in this instance, is bringing the alcohol outside with music, that impact on that neighborhood. But this is different in character and design than where we have already set aside properties within the community where these outdoor festivities are encouraged. So if you could, Mr. Chair, we do need to let the applicants have an opportunity to speak.
Happy to. Didn't have a speaker request, so
I think they just
Yeah.
didn't realize they had to turn one in.
Gotcha. Well, if you'd like to come up, we'd certainly hear from you. We just ask that you identify yourself when you're at the microphone.
Hi, I'm Gwen Fueling with Robbinsdale Entertainment Center. My husband and I have owned it since July of 2012. I want to thank Cassie and them for helping us try to figure all this out. We understand that there's rules associated with this. We're not trying to be Summer Nights. We're not trying to be Hills Alive. We're not trying to be anything like that. This time of year is our slow time of year. The bowling alley is really just open bowling. We don't have our leagues or anything like that. So really, it kind of takes the whole business down. So I understand their calculations with parking. I get that. We've met with them. They've talked to us about it. We are limiting the number of people that we even want there. I don't want 500 people there. We are limiting it to 300. The reason being is we know we can handle that. For the last 9 years, we've done bingo on Wednesday nights. We get 250 to almost 300 people. We cap it at 275, okay? That's in there. Our occupancy in there is 300. We want to just hold us outside. Nobody has anything left to do in the summer because of summer nights. We never ever approached it before because of that, because people were downtown, and I thought it was great. So we just want our customers to have something to do one night a week in the summer months, and to help our business, help our employees stay employed there. We have several, like I said, it's slow, so we have several employees that are trying to pick up nights. We don't have anything. We're also we hire local bands. We don't hire anybody out of state. They're people that live in this community, work here, support this community. So when we do our bingo nights and we have that many people in the building, we've never had a problem with parking. There's never been parking across the street. I was there last night. We had probably 225 people in the lounge, and I took pictures. There was nobody parking across the street. I don't think they've even gone down to Boyd's. Our proposal is that when they come in, we will have somebody there. When our lot is full, they will direct them to where they can park. If we advertise for it, if it's approved, we will tell them this is where it's going to be. But as we all know, you can tell people a lot of stuff. They're still going to do what they want to do. But we will do our best to direct them to those places. I guess I just want it to be considered that we are trying to control. We banned everybody. We can hold 300 people in the lounge. So if it rains, it can move in. Are everybody going to stay? No. But we're not getting a higher number of people than what could move into the lounge and still be okay. So I don't know. I just really hope you consider it. We've tried the best we can. We've talked to a lot of our business neighbors. They're all in full support of it. They're excited about it. So we're just hoping that you will look at it. We looked at some maps for the residential, and it doesn't really show on there. If they park on Mead Street, they have to walk through a creek, through a field that's grass up to your waist, to even get to the edge of our parking lot. So it's about 500 feet away to the first residential, or to Mead Street. And I mean, if it took me going down and asking the residents about it, we were planning on having a band on a trailer and then another enclosed trailer behind that to block as much noise as possible. And like I said, these are local bands. They don't have these big amplifier systems. I mean, they just don't have that. It's not some band, that's from, I don't know, wherever. We always hire just local bands. So I guess I would just like you to reconsider that. If we're only having 300 people, if you go out for dinner with your wife, are you both driving to the restaurant, or are you both driving home? So in this, if we need 348 spots, we have 300 people that we're going to let in. 48 people are going to walk back home and bring a second car. Okay, it's probably not going to happen. And like I said last night, I walked around at 7:30 when we were at over 200 people in the lounge, and there was still 25 parking spots left. And that's with our employees parking there. Our plan is to move our employees off-site to to Heil Mechanical. That's our plan. So then that's probably 15 more spots, because of course our employees are probably driving individually. But you got to look at the fact that a lot of people that come there will come in groups. They're going to drive together. Not 300 people are all going to drive their own car and need a parking spot. So I guess I just really want to keep our employees employed. I want to keep our local bands having another night to play, and people to enjoy the outside in the 3 months of warm weather we get.
Thank you. There may be questions for you. If so,
Okay.
we'll call you back up.
Okay.
Haven Stuck?
I appreciate what you said there, and I think there's a lot of things about this. It's a great proposal. It's a lot of good things about it. It seems like it kind of turns on the outdoor music, separate apart from the expansion of the area in which liquor can be served. I think it's a great proposal. I'm having difficulty. There's a lot of reasons that make this just a spot that may not be very appropriate for this proposal.
Vince?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the applicant a couple of questions, if I may, please. Well, the first question I'd like to ask you is that how many employees do you have?
Well, between the entire building, I have about 60 employees. Some of them are part-time.
And do you end up laying off these employees during the summertime?
They get their hours cut over in the lounge, yes. So obviously our Wednesday nights stay, and we still have our Friday and Saturday nights, but at this time of year, because the bowling alley isn't going and we don't have that also, we don't need to keep as many of them employed for their full time. They might go down to one night a week, or they might go to just working Fridays, not Saturdays. So I'm really just trying to keep more of them, because it hurts them and it hurts me, because if I don't keep them employed, they'll find something else. And then when fall comes and we get busy again and I need more people, I've got to rehire and I've got to retrain all of them. So I would like to keep them to have another night a week. We feel like we're going to have enough employees. It's about the same amount. Well, actually, it's going to be more. Our plan is every manager, we have 5 managers. They're all going to be there every night on top of the employees that would work in the lounge. Where we're going to block it off is at the main entrance to in the lounge. There will be somebody there IDing and banding, and we always put 300 bands once they're done. And then our plan also is to have somebody, as they're pulling in, to say, we have parking in the back, or when it's full, to direct them to Boyd's for parking.
So have you, I know you've looked into the parking, and you've talked to some of the businesses there, and I know the city has brought up the staff has brought up a very good point about whether or not there's going to be permission granted for those parking spaces. But when it comes to the sound, have you tested any kind of sound for an outdoor band there? Or
As of
outdoor
right
music?
now, no, we haven't.
Do you have any intention of checking into that?
We can, we were just, this kind of took our precedence now, but, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be hard for us to pull that in and do that. But like I said, if you've been in the lounge and seen any of the bands, the local bands that come here, they don't have these big fancy high dollar, really loud speakers either. And plus in there, obviously, it's turned down more in there too, because you're in an enclosed area. So that would be our intent too, is to keep it to a good level. I don't like to go to places where you're sitting there and the band's so loud that you can't even talk. I mean, you're there to enjoy the music, but you're also to enjoy your friends and talk. So that's another thing that I don't like, that we would like to control how loud it is.
No, I understand it, and you know, full disclosure, one of my sons is a local musician, so I understand perfectly. So yeah, that answers some of my questions and concerns and thoughts. It seems to me that there may be you may be interested in doing a little more planning on this issue for the music mitigation.
Yeah, I mean, we were willing to try it. When we started doing this, I guess we're just trying to do it the right way and get approval than just going out and doing it and hoping that it all works.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
just as a friendly reminder, this variance is to reduce parking. We'll get to the other factors of the use in more detail when we get to the conditional use permit, even though if the variance isn't approved, that it will be difficult for that conditional use permit to go forward. But specific to parking itself, while they do not have legal shared parking agreements in place to date, and I love the honesty of what she's brought to the table. They'll do their best to direct folks where they need to go, but at the end of the day, people will do what they want to do, and they're going to park in the very closest spot and walk across St. Patrick's Street or wherever that happens to be. I would like to point out to you that it's rare in our applications that we get the attention of the police department that warrants their appearance at a zoning board of adjustment and planning commission meeting. Lieutenant McCoy is in the audience today when this application, and they get all routings for every application that comes in. Just the history that the police department has had with instances small in nature and design, but when they take the alcohol outside and put that music element to it, the number of complaints, whether it be noise or those leaving the event being under the influence and driving through residential areas, parking in residential areas and walking in instead of parking close so that no one's witnessing that maybe they've had too much to drink before they get in their vehicle. Those all have been compounded to the extent that they actually provided us written comments noting these concerns, and are here today if you've got any questions for them as well.
Thank you.
And I still, and I guess, and again, the purpose of my question is that I know something else is coming up later. But it seems to me that you had some verbal agreements for parking, and the staff has indicated, though, that that you don't have permission for one particular parking area. Were you aware of that?
For what parking?
I can't, I'll have to ask the staff because she brought up the owner of the particular parking lot.
Oh, the Boyds?
No, which parking lot was it? Can we ask?
Both Heil and Boyd's,
Right.
you've
Yeah.
expressed that you have agreement from them, but it's not an agreement that the city considers
Yeah,
official.
we didn't know about having to have, how to go about to do a specific agreement on that. And that's something that we can still go do. When you're talking about parking in residential areas, as I said, to park over there, to park on Mead Street in that residence, they still have to drive through Boyd's. So why would they drive all the way through Boyd's to park on Mead Street to walk through a creek, through that, for the shortest route to the parking lot? Boyd's would be way closer of a walk. It's the same side of the street. It's, I don't know, a couple minute walk
Yeah.
up to our parking lot, and then everything is, like I said, we're having a controlled entrance into the music
Yes, ma'am.
area.
I do appreciate all the efforts that you made into that. I mean, that answers my questions for you. I do appreciate that. I mean, I think I would like to come back. I know you have other questions here, but I might like to come back and talk to the police.
Okay.
We'll go to Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the testimonial and the comments, and I love your idea. I want to be really clear about that. I'm all for fun. I think fun's amazing and great. You're energizing the space. I love it. Right about the time fun collides with safety, though that's where I am having a difficulty. And I just want to be perfectly clear, by making that motion, the motion I made is not about this. Is it a good idea? Is it a cool concept? Is it progressive? No, it's simply we're asking for a variance to reduce parking, and that's what my motion was made to deny. So I think the plan is cool. Just I think the execution and maybe the planning is not quite there yet. So I want to clear that up. Thank you.
Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think before we go any further, I'd like to hear a little bit from the police department where their stand is and see what they have to say, and then move forward. I have a couple questions, if we could.
If you're willing, Lieutenant McCoy.
Good morning. So just for general comments, I just want to make it clear, the police department isn't up here to say that we're in favor or opposition of this proposed plan. When it came across my desk and I noticed it, I worked with the sector lieutenant assigned to the south area, made him aware of it, and both of us shared the same concerns. It's been well articulated by community development, some of those concerns related to traffic. St. Patrick Street is a main thoroughfare, so if there was any pedestrians on St. Patrick Street, we have a concern for that, especially if you get into nighttime hours. When you take the elements of alcohol, an outdoor event, music, our experiences with that, a couple. One, staffing for it. What is the security plan? How is it that you plan to deal with the inevitable safety concerns that happen with the group that comes there? So typically speaking, if we've talked about summer nights, the way we have to staff that, we have to put significant resources from our own department into it, most specifically due to issues with the juveniles and delinquent youth. So we actually utilize our school resource officers to always staff that event significantly. And then it was brought up about the noise complaints. That is something that will come to the police department. The concerns there are completely valid. I know from working as a sector lieutenant what those concerns are. We already have heard from one business that is in opposition to this. I have concerns of what the residents, what their take would be on it, and the fact that there's no support right now from the residents does concern me. But again, I go back to, we're not saying we're against this or for this. We just have legitimate concerns and want to make sure that there's safety involved in this event. That's it.
So when you compare this to, say, the downtown, you kind of see this in the same scope, so to speak, And you can see some of the things that you've had to deal with downtown also here is what you feel as the police feel.
Yes, I think it would be very difficult to keep that number at 300. Vicky made a comment, people are gonna do what they wanna do, and that's what we see from the police side, is people will park where they wanna park, the most convenient place that they can park, and it is very difficult. I believe it would be very difficult to keep those numbers where they wanna keep those numbers at, and just our experience with these type of events, it's gonna have some safety concerns, 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
Quick point of clarity. So when this application came in, a conditional use permit to expand the on-sale liquor outside with outdoor live music, staff noted that there were deficit parking. They submitted the variance. When Cassie wrote the project report, she identified that they could secure parking agreements. These would need to be reviewed and approved by the attorney's office. There's a part of the parking regulations that say you can secure shared parking with another property owner, but the location of that parking lot must be within 300 feet of the front door of the business by pedestrian access. So during this meeting, because we got those letters yesterday saying Boyd's and Heil would be in agreement, so we're scampering trying to do research. Boyd's is over 600 feet away. So they would need a variance to allow the shared parking to be in excess of 300 feet. In reality, though, I think we all realize, try as you might to direct people where to park. People are going to park and then walk into the facility if they drive by and see there isn't any on-site parking. They're not going to pull in and ask for directions as to where to park. So we stand where we are with it. I'll let you guys continue your discussion.
I'm just going to jump the line here. When this came in, was there any discussion at all about possibly looking at a temporary permit, doing a one-off show or three, something like that? Because wasn't, in a sense, Summer Nights that way? They got a yearly permit, but...
Mr. Chair, they still do need to get a temporary use permit to bring in the activity, the trailers, because we consider those structures. So they will still need to do that. And we have a seasonal permit, but I don't know, was there any discussion about just try it one time? Typically, the energy and effort they put into this, it would be hard for them to create the outdoor area, get the security hired, knowing that we're going to try it once, but if there's complaints, we're not going to be able to do it again.
Okay, that's fair. Vince, you're up again.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I
I'm
still
sorry,
had-
Mike.
that's okay. I hope that they realize that the reason this is going on so long is that we think this is a great idea. You're helping keep employees employed. You have you've done a lot of things to try to make this happen. And yes, we're discussing the parking right now, but the parking really doesn't matter if we decide that we shouldn't have this event. So they kind of tie together. And so I think that's why we've expanded on this the way we have. That said, the idea is great. I think the noise, the neighborhood is close. I mean, you can hear noise when they had the downtown. You could hear that all over town. And as close to residential as we are here, I just fear us accepting this or going forward, we send a message that it's okay. And I think the noise complaints will be far greater than a lot of areas. So this is a tough one, but you've done a beautiful job, and we truly do understand why you're trying to do this, and we would love to be able to back you on this. We'll absolutely love to. I'm just, it's maybe just the wrong place. That's what I foresee.
Vince?
Lieutenant, thank you. Appreciate it. I really don't have any other questions. I know you're not predicting, but your experience is valuable, and thank you for the information. I do appreciate that. And Vicki, I appreciate the staff and the community development team, what they've worked for and what they work through, because again, this is not easy, and you know that. But I do appreciate the applicants looking into it, and I hope maybe there might be some alternatives in the future, or some thoughts in the future that might help you. And I certainly wish you and the 60 employees there, you know, a better summer. So thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to say why I seconded the motion of Eric's. My biggest concern was the traffic, the one-way circulation. That's pretty tight, and it goes through all the parking lots and cars, so people would be walking, and it just to me was a safety issue. So I'm strictly looking at the parking issue that's out there. I know there's other reasons why people don't think this is a good idea, but I know that Robbinsdale Lounge or the Robbinsdale Complex has done some great things out there, and I know they have something in the evening. I don't know what day it is, but I know a lot of people who go to that, and it's a fun place to go. I've gone there to eat a lot, you know, with some friends, and so I wish them well. I wish there was a way that we could support something, but not quite this scale, maybe. I don't know. You know, it's something that they do good things. I hope they put their thinking caps on and can find something that will work for them. But my motion was, or my second was just basically based on the parking issue. So.
Alicia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo what Karen said, I understand about that this is just really connected to the parking variance, and hope that, you know, going forward, maybe for next summer, scaling down an event and coming up with a more formal staffing and security plan with police, and potentially getting the formal agreements with Boyd's, that, you know, something like this in the future could work out for this group in this location. So thank you.
Haven?
Maybe just a couple more comments. I was just noting that they apparently could expand their use, their backyard, their outside area. However, it appears that right now the uses require 175 spots, and they've only got 177. I think I'm correct with the notes. So that's what I was going to suggest, is that they could have something like dueling pianos, or they could have a single person playing music outside, but they would be limited to an area that would only encompass 2 parking places. Otherwise, they're going to run into the issue with the existing parking, I think. So that's kind of what I was trying to figure out too, is somebody suggested, you know, what possible alterations could there be to have something in addition to what they're doing now, but not to the scale that they're proposed.
Can I add just I'm going to jump on Haven's thoughts. This is what would be proposed to be 12 nights a year. If you say 3 months, 1 night a week, is there anything? Variances are tough because there's a whole set of rules. We sit as zoning board of adjustment as quasi judicial. There's no place to go but court past us. Is there some avenue in our code that would allow for a 12 out of 365 type of use of a property, or is it just a variance, and using it 365 days a year is the same as using it 12 days a year?
Mr. Chair, any of these uses where you're going outside of the established structure, we have greenhouses that have popped up all over town. Every one of those have a seasonal temporary use permit, and they have worked with staff to ensure that they've got sufficient parking on their property because it's not only how many parking spaces are you taking up, but then that expanded use triggers additional parking. So you've got to have an excessive amount of additional parking before you're one of those properties that can support an outdoor use. And as it should be, because we don't want parking to be a deficit on anyone else in the neighborhood. If you're encouraging people to come to your site, you should safely park them without encroaching into the neighborhood. So even whether you're selling T-shirts, doing something like this, they'll always require a temporary use permit. Parking is always an issue. And you have had variances before you in the past for those that want to secure a temporary use permit so that they can sell. There's one up at the mall, Uptown Mall, where they can do some outdoor display. And that required, in essence, Planning Commission approving that allowance, but you limited it to so many days. But there was no other one else they were going to impact, because if you don't park at the mall, where do you park? And they have an excessive amount of parking, and they were only short a few spaces.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor from Eric and seconded by Karen is to deny this request to reduce the minimum required parking. Are there further comments on that? Discussion?
Don't we need to have a reason like?
I don't think for denial, but
No?
Karen asked if we need to cite any criteria for
Yes.
denial.
Yes,
Okay.
and so as Cassie demonstrated, reasonable use of the property exists. There are safety concerns with the parking, lack of parking, and the pedestrian activity in the neighborhood along a principal arterial street for those walking into the site. And based on that, that would give you legal grounds to take your action.
Does that work with the motion maker? Okay, all right. Motion maker and second agreed with that. All right, all those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. But the motion carried. It was Alicia and I voting against. All right, that's our only zoning board of adjustment meeting, or item. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Vince made the motion to adjourn. Mike Gallagher seconded it. I heard him. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? We'll now commence the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for May 22nd, 2025. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, you can grab a speaker request form over on the left side of the room and hand it to the staff seated by there. And if you still haven't turned your cell phone off or turned it to silent, please do so now so our meeting is not disrupted. Items 1 through 5 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following item. Item 5, 25 PD 011. The Rapid City Planning Commission's action on this item is final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Any items 1 through 5 that staff would like removed?
No, thank you.
Any items that any planning commissioner would like removed for separate consideration? Yep, I've got a speaker request for 4, so I'm going to remove item 4. And any items 1, 2, 3, or 5 that any audience member would like to remove as well for separate consideration? The chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 5 in accordance with staff's recommendation.
Motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 5 in accordance with the staff's recommendations and stipulations.
All right, Vince made the motion. Mike seconded it again. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4. This is a request for a final plan development to allow mobile home park. John West, I have a speaker request from you if you'd like to come up and address the council.
I'm from Brookdale Estates.
If you just say your name for
John
our,
West.
go for it.
I just have some concern because Shepherd Meadows, number one, caused flooding in Brookdale Estates. I just have concern that I'm not going to get the same excuses if they flood again when they're building this. They told me back then when they were doing Shepherd Meadows that it wouldn't flood, and I told them it was going to, and it did. And we had 3 residents that their home was flooded every week.
If you're willing, could you identify the areas maybe?
It's the
If-
north, well,
I think they can bring up a overhead map. We'd appreciate seeing
for
that.
the development, it'll be the southwest corner. That, no, wait,
Yeah.
We
It'd
can
be
help
the-
you out, sir.
southeast corner of theirs, their property. Brookdale Estates is just below. When they did the first section on there, it flooded the last, or the 3 trailers there. It continued to flood it. And when I brought it up to them, they told me that was in phase 2 to fix that. In the
Mr.
meantime, these people's homes were flooding with silt, and it was in their, they had to clean it up. I'm just concerned that when they're building this, that they're not causing more flooding.
Mr. Chair, if we could
Vicky?
perhaps defer to Todd.
Todd?
Yeah, I guess for this project, this drainage is on the west side of the existing mobile home park. There's a channel that they are proposing, a detention pond that they're proposing to address their runoff. Previously, I do believe there was some drainage issues. There's an east-west channel on the north side of the Brookdale Mobile Home Park. I think it's filled in with sediment over time and has caused some drainage. My understanding was that the contractor was to clean that out a couple of years ago even. And I guess that was the last that I was aware of it.
So, Mr. Chair, Tanner's trying to show you by putting the cursor over that shaded area. So there is a strip of detention that's being included in this. I don't know if anyone from Advanced Engineering Design is in the audience. To have one of their engineers speak to it would be helpful.
What I'm seeing on this site plan, north is to the left side of this page.
Our property's right here.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's-
North is
yeah.
to the left.
So
Yes.
the drainage would be between phase 1 and phase 2,
Correct,
and then move down to the south
correct.
towards Brookdale into, I assume, another channel down there. And that would be the channel, Todd, that you said was supposed to be dug out a couple of years ago. Sorry.
No, so this one goes to a channel on the west side of the mobile home park. I believe the one that there was an issue with is on the north side that this project will not drain into. So from Mickelson to the west, there's a channel
That's our property right there.
on the
This is where it
east-west
flooded
channel.
last time.
And then it turns south on the west side of the mobile home, of the Brookdale Mobile Home Park. So yeah, I believe the channel that was maybe filled with sediment in the past is a different channel than the one that this project is going into.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I believe
Vicky?
that the applicant is in the audience.
If you can provide any discussion of this, we'd appreciate it. Just identify yourself once you're up.
Teresa Bennington with Shepherd's Meadow. I believe all the concerns before were with the previous developer. This property was purchased in 2021, and all the concerns that I've read online and so forth was with the previous developer. For this next development, I think we've addressed everything with the retention ponds and so forth. And we've actually scaled this back from the original 90 lots all the way down to, I believe, 71 lots to allow for all the drainage and the floodway and so forth.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
there is a mechanism in place so that if there are concerns with drainage in a neighborhood, sometimes it is a civil issue between property owners, sometimes there's a opportunity for the city to assist. But they can certainly contact us and we can look at that. Sometimes it's in the adjacent property's responsibility to keep their drainage way clear. I don't know that we know the particulars here, but just so that the gentleman that showed up today that did make comment, there is an avenue of communication that is in place right now, so we can at least have the conversation with the responsible person that needs to address those issues.
Thank you.
I don't know. You say it could be our responsibility? The property's been there since 1973. We've never had any flooding.
No. I said through that communication, then we could do an investigation to see whose responsibility it is. We won't know that until we look at all the details of it. Every situation is different. My point is, there is a procedure in place that if there's a development going on in your neighborhood and something changes, you've got truck traffic through your residential area or you've got additional drainage that's causing damage, you can contact us and we can do an investigation to see what the remedy might be. And we won't know it until we're put on notice and we can take a look at that
I
situation.
just got this 2 days ago, so.
Understood. But if the drainage issue, Mr. Chair, my apologies for speaking directly.
You're good.
If you do have those similar situations happen with this phase, then please reach out to us and we'll take a look at it and see what might be creating the additional drainage and what the remedy may be.
Okay, because last time they flooded out 3 times before Dream Design came in and finally fixed it. And they pushed over our fence with their dirt and destroyed our fence and everything. That didn't fix it until they cut the ditch. And I don't know who, and Dream Design said it was the trailer park's fault.
We'll be sure to share these comments back with Dream Design so that they're taking notice of this too.
So in the meantime, what do I need to do to make sure that when they're building this, I don't have a problem with them building it. Just like last time, that they don't say it's in phase 2 to fix that. Or the drainage part is in phase 2.
Mr.
While
Chair,
all my tenants are getting flooded.
I think the correct process is to contact Public Works if there's a concern that with the
I did that
flooding.
last time and it flooded anyway, so.
Mr. Chair, this is a final plan development. And before they're going to get a building permit to do anything, they will have to submit a complete drainage plan by a licensed engineer, and our licensed engineers will review it, and what will get built will be according to what those 2 engineers agree needs to be done in order to detain the flows as required by our drainage manual. So just know that that will be done.
Just
And
saying I have
hopefully,
concern.
this is the phase that captures the additional detention so that we're addressing some of those issues.
Okay.
But if they should arise, let us know.
Oh, you'll know. Thank you. That's the tenants will let me know.
All right, Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think to make note, what was just mentioned there by him, he's concerned that he's going to be told that they're going to take care of it, but he's trying to prevent it from the get-go, and that's his concern. And I think that's where I think if he contacts Public Works, hopefully we get right on it and the problem is solved sooner than later. So we appreciate what you brought and thank you for coming forward with the problem.
Vince?
No further comments, thank you.
All right,
I'll make a motion.
okay,
Motion to approve according with the staff recommendations.
all right. Vince made the motion to approve with those stipulations from staff. And Mike Gallagher seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6.
So item number 6 is a major amendment to a plan development overlay, and what they're planning to do is change the ground floor commercial suites of this building to apartment units. So the property zone urban commercial district, which with a plan development overlay, and the intention of this district is to promote pedestrian orientated and mixed use development. So the future land use is downtown, and which encourages mixed use development along primary corridors of the downtown, like adjacent to St. Joseph Street. So the property is located adjacent to St. Joseph Street, which is classified as a principal arterial street on the city's major street plan, and is also classified as a pedestrian orientated street in the Rapid City Municipal Code. So this is the existing site plan. As part of the original approval, they did get exceptions to waive the requirement to provide a graduated setback to the 4th story. They got an exception to allow greater than a 10-foot setback to First Street, and they also got an exception to allow more than 25% of the Second Street frontage to consist of a parking lot. So the Planning Commission, when they first looked at this project, they approved those exceptions with knowing that it would be a mixed-use development with commercial on the ground floor. That was the expectation at the time. So this is the existing floor plan. It consists of unfinished commercial space, and there's 99 apartment units above this. And then this is the proposed floor plan. So they're proposing 17 new apartment units on the ground floor. There's going to be space for amenity space for tenants on the east side, and they're preserving 1 commercial suite on the western side. So by changing this floor plan, it's really changing the building from a mixed-use building to more of a standalone apartment building, which isn't aligned with the original intent of the project and Planning Commission's original approval of this project. So this is looking at the south elevation. This is the elevation that faces St. Joseph Street. So the applicant has indicated that there's not going to be any structural changes or any changes to this elevation. And so staff is recommending that the apartment units along St. Joseph Street be denied, because the intent of the zoning district is to provide for pedestrian and mixed-use development, and that's really the intent of this street corridor of the downtown St. Joseph Street, is to have ground floor uses that engage pedestrians, such as cafes, retail shops, restaurants, facing St. Joseph Street. And we don't believe that apartments facing St. Joseph Street meets the intent of the zoning district or the city's comprehensive plan. And then this is looking at the north elevation. So this is the elevation that faces the internal parking lot. They're going to be adding a couple windows there, adding a door to accommodate those apartment units. So staff is recommending that the apartment units facing this elevation be approved because it's orientated away from the primary corridors of downtown, so it's orientated away from St. Joseph Street, and there doesn't appear to be any conflict with the zoning district or the city's comprehensive plan with allowing apartment units facing the parking lot as opposed to St. Joseph Street. So public notice was posted on the property. This is looking at that front elevation facing St. Joseph Street. And then this is looking at the rear elevation facing the internal parking lot. And then this is looking west on St. Joe, looking east on St. Joe. So staff is recommending that the apartment units facing the parking lot be approved, and recommending that the apartment units facing St. Joseph Street be denied.
Mr. Chair.
Vicky?
It's been a few years now, but the city worked hard to create a new zoning district that would bridge the gap between our central business district and School of Mines. And our intent was, let's create a district that somewhat mirrors the central business. Not quite, because we don't have all of the street parking that we would need if we did a full extension of the central business district. We created urban commercial, and it is approved to allow for commercial on the first floor, residential above it, that mixed use. The selling feature is you could live and work in the same building, right? The second promotion for doing this is to encourage that pedestrian walkway between our downtown core and the School of Mines, and maintaining commercial along this principal arterial street where people can walk and gaze over, walk in and participate in some commercial component. It really does capture that. When we start standing these up as standalone apartments, we lose the full intent of why we even created the urban commercial district. Remember, they have reduced setbacks, reduced parking, and we are concerned that right now we're looking at amending our parking requirement for apartments from 1.5 parking spaces per unit to 2, and that is even less in the urban commercial district because we do have street parking. So there's that concern as well. But this really goes against the very intent of why we created the urban commercial district. If you can imagine walking down that sidewalk and they're not changing the elevations on this side, and you're looking into those apartment units, that's really not what we want the public to see. We want them to engage. We can certainly appreciate that perhaps they're having difficulty leasing that commercial space. So we're fully in support of taking those on the north end and making them residential. We understand their situation, but it still preserves the integrity of what we want to keep on that pedestrian street section. And being creative on how you might lease those in order to fill those occupancies may need to be looked at. But we're hopeful that you support us on maintaining those along the south elevation as commercial components and not residential. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki. We have a couple speaker request forms, but questions for staff at this point. Alicia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Tanner and Vicki, for the explanation. And I think it is really important, especially since the district was recently created, to maintain that sense of commercial on the main floor of the space. And as we've been talking about, it seems like reasonable use of the property currently exists. So I'm curious to hear from the owners why they'd like to make the change now. I don't know if it's accurate, but I saw online that it looks like about 19 units are available at different sizes currently in the apartment building. But if it's determined that they really need some more apartments on the main floor, I think that the planning staff made a good compromise of having only allowing new apartments on the north side that's internally facing. Thank you.
Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to wait to hear the speakers before I comment. Thanks.
All right. Richard Williams?
Mr. Chair, Richard Williams from Gunderson Palmer on behalf of the applicant. If you would allow, I would have Norman Drake speak first to lead off.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Norman Drake, I'm a manager of the Elements. When we started this project, we had extensive conversations with community development and staff. As a matter of fact, we considered it, because I've done these types of downtown mixed use in apartments. I've done 5 separate ones in Sioux Falls. And so we wanted to be clear to the staff when we began this, that this could go either direction. And so I have copies of emails we have with Fletcher Lackock at the time in discussing this, where he states that either apartments or commercial are accepted uses on the ground floor. The only thing we needed the variance for were some of the setbacks, which we increased so that there'd be more setback from the street. The other thing we had a variance for was to get a parking garage underneath so that we could self-contain all of our parking. And as a matter of fact, with the new configuration, we don't even need the on-street parking. We're in excess of 7 spaces now. So from that perspective, I just wanted to state that I was surprised that we'd even have to be here today and not just getting a building permit. But to that end, there's several articles I'd like to bring your attention to. One by a consulting group called Street Sense, and this was published in 2024. And I think an excerpt of it states, as place consultants, we understand the importance of ground floor environments that are interesting, active, and comforting to pedestrians. However, as retail, brick and mortar retail in particular, morphs before our very eyes, we have to acknowledge the truth. Too many cities simply have too much retail space and not enough productive retail uses to fill it. Yet cities in pursuit of vibrancy continue to apply zoning mandates for retail and or commercial uses on the ground floor. The result is a structural oversupply of retail space that both contributes to higher vacancy rates while at the same time eliminating the possibility of ground floor residential units. This is exactly the case. Downtown Rapid City right now has a 24% vacancy rate in the retail space in downtown. In terms of vacancy for dwelling units, apartments, downtown is about 4 to 5% vacancy rates, while the overall Rapid City market is 14%. Healthy is a 5 to 7% vacancy rate. I think the other thing is that if you'd ask any of the retailers that are in downtown whether they'd rather have more retailers competing for the dollars that are out there, or whether they'd rather have more tenants living downtown that really activate their retail sector, because these restaurants, they generate a lot more revenues from people that live here than people that are just going to the office from 8 to 5. There's the name of the projects I did in Sioux Falls. I did 2 of them with Lloyd Companies. One was Uptown Exchange, where we marketed the main floor property for over 2 years, and to no avail. So we left about 1,500 square feet, converted the bottom floor. We did a building next to it, 87 units. This time we were smarter. We did the 87 right away. We only left 2,000 square feet, and that took us a long time to finally fill with South Dakota Public Broadcasting as the tenant for that building. And it wasn't until we created enough units downtown that Craig was actually able to do what was called the Cascades. And that was a building that had over 200 units in it, had 3 sides facing the street, and only filled one side of it with retail. An article from Zoning Practices, APA. Many planned centers and corridors near important neighborhood anchors, colleges, medical centers, employment centers, theaters, and performance. Many could consolidate centers in the highest density parts of the neighborhood where consumer demand would be the greatest. These locations are more likely to be successful with tenants in place. Here's the Downtown Sioux Falls Retail Strategy 2024. One of the conclusions and recommendations to the zoning code. It is good that residential is a conditionally permitted ground floor use in mixed use buildings. Retail should not be mandated ground floor use, as retail does not belong everywhere. Residential uses can still be activating where retail is not the best fit for ground floor uses. If you look at the neighbors across the street, we have a jail. we're trying to activate this corridor, and we really believe by having more people live here, it becomes a safer neighborhood. There's more eyes in there. That's kind of what I had to say. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mr. Williams,
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thanks for having us here today. I think I would like to start, because I'm a lawyer, so I think I want to talk about the legal aspects of this. And I think we need to reframe essentially where we're coming from what perspective. You know, normally when we're in front of you, we're talking about, oh, do I need a variance? Do I need a conditional use permit? That's not what we're doing here. There's no variance, there's no conditional use permit necessary for this application. So I think we need to flip the presumption on its head. And when you look at the statutes or your ordinances, what we have here in this zoning district, this is in fact a permitted use. It's a permitted use to have dwellings, multifamily dwellings, all the way and including the first floor. And in fact, if you look at the zoning code, 17.66.070, it says you can have multifamily dwelling units in this area. It is a permitted use. So I think we start, rather than saying we shouldn't have this, I think we need to start with the presumption that it is in fact allowed. And it's allowed if the conditions under subsection I are met within that code section that I cited. My review of the staff report is that none of those elements are missed, not a one. So this fits. This is a permitted use in that zone all the way, for apartments, all the way to the ground floor. And the elements meets every one of those provisions. So I think we need to start with that focus. This is a permitted use, it's permitted in this zone, and it meets the criteria. And that's important because, again, it's unlike a conditional use or a variance where you start with the opposite presumption. It should be presumed that this is allowed. And in this specific instance, it's not only is allowed, I think it's a good idea. And let me tell you why. So the other day I was thinking about this project when Norm called me up and he said, hey, you would take a look at this for us. And I said, yeah, sure. So we looked at the law and we said, this fits. It's a permitted use, fits in this area. Let's figure out a little bit more about what's going on in downtown Rapid City. And I kind of want to lead with this because it's maybe a little bit puts me in the situation. When I moved back to the area, I'm from Sturgis, from ever grew up there. I moved back to the area in 2019 and I was working for Gunnison Palmer Law Firm. And my wife was still in Pierre trying to sell a house. So I lived above Wicked Hair Salon on St. Joe for 8 to 9 months. I got to spend a lot of time in downtown Rapid City. That was my home. I rarely left the area if I didn't have to. And the only reason I had to leave was go get groceries. So I spent so much time down here. I walked around, I saw these things. And this plan came about pre-COVID. So I think this is another thing that we need to address too. COVID changed things for everybody, for a lot of cities. And these are some of the reports that Norm was talking about earlier. Those are talking about how planning has changed since COVID has affected retail space. And I was on the board with the Main Street Square Board too before it got transitioned into Visit Rapid City. And one of the concerns was vacant space in the heart of downtown Rapid City, which I would kind of say, from my perspective living down here, was between Mount Rushmore Road and 5th Street. And the vacant spaces on that were a giant concern, retail spaces on the first floor. Because you're walking around, you're a tourist, you're gonna get dropped off at the bus stop down here, where are you gonna go? You're gonna go down here, you're gonna do your shopping between Mount Rushmore Road, you're gonna look around before 5th Street. That's the location. So when you think about what do we need to do to avoid vacant retail spaces in that general heart of the area, so who do I call? I call Tom Johnson with Elevate. I said, Tom, can you give me some numbers, some reports, something you guys can throw my way? Met with Laura, Garth, and Tom. And they sent me really thick packets of information, and I couldn't possibly give you all that information today. I would be more than happy to give that to you if you wanted some supplemental information down the road. Here were the takeaways. 2022, the retail vacancy in the downtown area was 7.9%. 2025, vacancy 28.6%. At the same time, that the retail vacancies are going up, we see, and you might hear this number, say, okay, we've got 14.1% vacancies in the metro area of Rapid City. But downtown Rapid City tells a different story. It's only 4.3% vacancy, when a healthy vacancy should be considered 5 to 7%. So what does that mean? We need to get more people living in downtown to get this vacancy rate of retail reduced. And how do you do that? One of the key things that came from that conversation that I thought was pretty catchy and also made sense is retail follows rooftops. So the more people that you can get living down in this area, the better off you are to get retail space in play. And so when you look about, okay, the heart of downtown Rapid City, I kind of talked about where that is. These guys are located 3 blocks from the School of Mines and 3 blocks from Fifth Street. I've done a lot of walking between my office right here in the old Elks building to the courthouse. And my feeling of that is this is an area different from the heart of downtown Rapid City, where you might say, we'd prefer to have retail spaces. You're getting into a transition period. And you're also servicing people, students from the School of Mines with additional housing. I think that it would be, and this is my personal opinion, and I think it goes along with these numbers, is that you get that housing there in that area, all the way down to the first floor. Get the people in there. They can walk 3 blocks to the School of Mines. They can walk 3 blocks up to the heart of downtown Rapid City. And what are they going to be doing there? They're going to be going to restaurants, stores. Let's fill in. Let's give the guys a chance that have current buildings on the heart of downtown, St. Joe, Maine. Let's fill up their retail space first. Make sure that that looks good when we have tourists, when we have people coming downtown. Let's not have open spaces there before we try to have somebody that's 3 blocks on the other side of Fifth Street fill up space that they've been trying to rent for 4 years with no avail. And so what I'm saying, and Sioux Falls is facing this, and those articles face the same thing. In a post-COVID world, the ideal designs have changed. More residential is necessary to support the retail business. And we see that with these numbers here. From my perspective, this is what we need. One, I guess to sum it up, here's the thing. This is a permitted use in this area. It fits all the criteria. That's the point we should start from. This is a permitted use. They can be active as a multi-dwelling unit in that area. It fits the code. It meets the criteria from 1766 070 sub 1. And I would ask you to permit it as applied for. If you were thinking about not doing that today and saying, okay, we're just going to do the north half and not Main Street, or not the St. Joe side, I would ask you this. Please delay that decision. Let us give you the reports and give us the numbers that we received from Elevate and get that in front of you in a more meaningful document that you could have more time to digest, so you can really get to the heart of what we need to do here to be good partners with Rapid City, promote the downtown area, make it vibrant. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Vicki?
You know what I love is your direct conversation. I really do appreciate it. It does help lay things out. I sat on the committee that put together the Urban Commercial Zoning District, and I will admit that there is some confusing language. The intent, though, under the section that was quoted for I, that says that for those multifamily dwelling units, for that part of the ground floor uses that are abutting those pedestrian walkways, those need to be active interfacing uses. And while that doesn't clearly say commercial, that was the intent. And that's why also in this district, it says that when you are bringing these buildings closer to the street, there is a requirement that there be transparency through that first floor. You have to be able to see through 66% of the building from front to back. And we wouldn't have done that if it was intended to be residential. But I do agree, it is confusing and needs to be called out. The intent was there'd be commercial along the pedestrian streets and residential everywhere else. I will also note that I sit on the Parking Advisory Board, and there seems to be more and more and more residential in our downtown area. Parking is becoming an issue. Those that are violating the parking, feeding the meters, et cetera, are more and more residential. So they want to have a voice. If we're going to do ordinance amendments that allow additional residential stand-up apartments, they want to have a voice in that. Put all that aside. There is a plan development that has been approved for this property. It was approved by the Planning Commission. It says the first floor is going to be commercial, the rest of it's going to be residential. Based on that, and that alone, it requires this major amendment for your consideration. Whether you concur that the ordinance isn't clear enough to dictate that it be commercial, whether or not you agree that there's a need to preserve that pedestrian walkway between downtown and the School of Mines, I think we all agree that the statistics that you quoted are some that we too have in our access, that there is a low opening vacancy of residential in our downtown core. We'll see what Block 5 brings, but those aren't available at this time. So we still put it before you. I don't know that we need to continue it. I think we're having some great conversation today. We don't dispute the fact that there is low vacancy in residential downtown. And I realize we're putting a lot on you. That's why you guys get paid the big bucks. But we're just trying to preserve the integrity of the urban commercial district and the previously approved PD that you acted upon.
Thanks, Vicki. Eric Hikas.
This is an excellent conversation. I agree with Vicki.
It's so hard.
Counselor, I really do appreciate your comments as well, especially the data that you provided and the condition of the COVID that has had an impact. I too sat on the urban commercial group, and we did some pilot projects. I really realized the intent of it as well. I'm just going to throw out that the compromise of having the apartments on the floor facing the parking lot is I think is a movement in the right direction. I also agree with Vicki that this major amendment was a previously approved plan development. So, boy, this is a good dialogue. I'm not sure what to say next, other than that I really appreciate it. And there's a lot of history behind the comments that we have here too. So this is great.
Alicia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the additional legal clarification and background. I wonder from a legal perspective how the previously approved variances might affect what can happen now if variances were in 2020 to accommodate something that was going to be mixed use with the intent of commercial on the ground floor. Does that change anything today or not necessarily?
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
If I could help you out. Those should still stand. Those were structural and not really related to use. So those, we call them exceptions when they're in a plan development, but they should stand for the structural integrity of the building.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I first looked at this request, my first thought was, why would anyone want to live on a first floor that's that close to the street where people could walk by and you could, you'd either have to have your curtains closed all the time or people would be looking in your house, basically. And I looked at other things around the country where even older neighborhoods in, say, Philadelphia, for instance, those are on street, they're first floor, but they have some kind of elevation or something to make them set aside so they don't appear like you're having a house or a residence right close to the street. And so my first thought was, I wouldn't want to be there. I wouldn't want to have a place to live right there. I think that when you start off with a building permit to do a structure and you come through and you say, this is a planned development, and you say, this is what I want to do. And then down the road, you aren't able to sell those properties to do commercial. That's something that changes in your aspect, but not in ours. We agreed that this is what you should be able to do, and this is part of the current zoning for that area. And I looked around town everywhere. There's a lot of places. There's one that's coming up down by Walmart that says the same thing. They're going to do commercial on the bottom, and I'm thinking, well, that's not downtown, but still, there's a lot of places that are, a lot of buildings that are having residences on top and commercial on the bottom. And I agree that downtown has lack of housing. It's got more commercial spaces that are not being utilized, and that's happened for decades. I mean, one time, the JCPenney building downtown sat empty for 10 years, and nobody, nothing happened with that. And so there's spots like that in your downtown area that you want to fix. And to me, it's a combination of people who have a structure that they want to utilize and get the most money that they can for that building. And if it sits vacant, you're not making any money. And I appreciate the applicant saying, I got to do something with this bottom floor. But at the time, I just don't think this is the right thing to change this one into residential uses, and that's kind of my comment.
Vince?
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the design on this, isn't there a physical fitness complex in this building?
Yes, there is.
What is that set to accommodate? How many people? Do you know?
I can't tell you. Go back, right there.
Yeah. All right, but
1,500 square feet, probably 2,000 somewhere.
I'm sorry, Mr. Drake, for purposes of our meeting, if you'd say it to the mic, you're welcome to.
Sorry. I can't tell you the exact capacitance load, but I think this space is about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet.
and so this is this free to the residents?
Yes.
So it could be on the ground floor as a physical fitness facility too?
Yes, it is. It is. It's on the ground floor.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't have any other lights up, so I try to take these as my chime-in points. This is a tough one for me. I believe 100% that there is a place for ground floor apartments in our urban core. I think there's a number of places, and full disclosure, I own one of the places that has ground floor apartments over on 9th Street and Main Street. But where I struggle is, and maybe my viewpoint is not adjusted to COVID, but I do think there needs to be storefronts along the main streets. And the places that I think of that we have existing now that work have that. Harriet and Oak has, I think, 6 apartment units in the back of it. 118 Main has, I can't count, 7 maybe, behind the chiropractor that's along Main Street. And the struggle I'm having is that I had that preconceived notion, and I haven't really considered that maybe that time has changed. But for purposes of today, I just haven't heard enough to get me off that idea that there should be a storefront along the main streets. And so at this point, I'm going to be supporting the staff recommendation.
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
This is a struggle for us too. We want this building to be vital. We want the owner of it to have 100% occupancy. While we wanted to have those storefronts, when you look at the elevations, they're designed as storefronts. We want people to walk by and see the puppy in the window and say, hey, that's a cute cafe, let's stop in. And I get that retail element just isn't there today. So when you go back to the floor plan of the first floor, we're looking to capture some of those storefronts. I don't know what that might look like to just have those smaller storefronts with some smaller apartments then that would be on that southern half of the building, but still preserving some of those storefronts. I mean, we certainly appreciate what they're trying to do and their needs. We get it. We align with the housing numbers that are available, and we are open to encouraging more first floor apartments as long as they don't abut our pedestrian arterial streets. We still want that commercial when you're walking downtown, and our downtown is growing, and our goal is to grow it all the way from where it's at right now to the front door of the School of Mines, eventually. It's taken time, but this is our first step. And we want people, as you would walking down St. Joe between 8th and 7th, to enjoy looking in those storefronts and see people coming in and out of businesses. That's the integrity of why we created the urban commercial district. We're open to allowing apartments everywhere except the preservation of some commercial units directly adjacent to the pedestrian street. Just trying to compromise to the greatest degree possible.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yeah, Mr. Williams.
So I mean, I'd get back to the legal on this. The city knows how to prohibit an activity. You do that, you can flat out prohibit it, you can have it as a conditional use, or you can have it as a variance. This is a permitted use in this area. And they've met all the criteria for that permitted use. I think we should start from that perspective. We know that there is issues with getting commercial space in the downtown area. This is the most effective use of this. You know what's worse than having the worst thing is having a vacant space. This space has not been filled. That's not to say that it couldn't be sometime in the future a retail space. It doesn't make sense today. And in the future, if the market would make it fit, retail space could be put back in there. But it just doesn't make sense today. And this is a permitted use today. So I would close with that. I believe Norm wanted to say something, if that would be okay, Mr. Chair.
Please.
The other issue that it creates just from a design perspective is you only have about a 30 to 35 foot deep bay if you slice this in half. Retail tenants all want 65 to 70 foot deep bays. And quite frankly, this street is not a pedestrian friendly street. I just heard talk about St. Pat, which is very similar type street. You know, this is darn near a highway coming down there. And that's why we put the setbacks. We're just trying to do what we believe is best for the community and to enhance the vibrancy of downtown.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the commission? Mike Quasney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where are the nearest commercial buildings right now? If I understand, just down the block, isn't there restaurants? So we kind of have the commercial complex going on in that area. So there is that availability right now. And we could argue, well, we could use more, but if we have 24%, I think was the occupancy deficiency rate, or we have a lot of open fronts. I guess I would want to ask those businesses that have their space that is not rented, do they really want these commercial spaces sitting open, making it where it's more difficult for them to rent it? We could make that argument. So I could see why they might want to put these into apartments. I guess I struggle. We put a planned development together. The thought is that what was planned is what we hope happens. Do we need to be flexible though when we have problems? And if those numbers, 24%, if the rental space for living space is 6%, well, it makes sense. We need more living space. So I might be more inclined to go with the living space. I'd like to see maybe the one end to the left, as I look at the visual on that, maybe there's a way to keep a commercial spot for a coffee shop or something that might, but if they can't rent it, they can't rent it. And we have a lot of spaces in that downtown area that are empty, and we don't want to get back into the J.C. Penney, as was brought up here. all the open spaces that we have. So I guess I'd be more inclined to accept, but I struggle with the concept that we did have a planned development, and we try to stick with those.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, on
Mr.
the
Williams?
left-hand side of the plan, that will remain commercial space under the application, and that commercial space is 1,322 square feet.
No problem. You're good.
I believe that the applicant can jump in, but I don't think they have a specified use for that commercial on the left-hand side, but I think the general idea is some sort of coffee shop that I was hearing from the applicant.
Okay. Can you show the frontage of that again? Can you get to that picture? There is the railing that goes across there. It does, on the right side of the picture, it is raised somewhat. The left side is not raised, so it kind of enhances the vision of apartment buildings being raised on the right, and that's where I saw a visual where on this left side from where that jets out there, the last 3 glassed in areas, that could be commercial and everything else could be apartments, so to speak. But again, I struggle with the fact that empty spaces don't look good. And we have a lot of spaces that are empty downtown. Throughout our community, there's a lot of commercial spaces that are empty, and that's a struggle. So I can understand why they would want to figure out how to fill their space. That's what they're in business for.
Yeah. Eric Heikus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike, pragmatic as usual. Good points. I do agree with those. I also agree with the comments that Karen made and Eric made. I'm going to make a friendly motion here to in part deny and in part approve a major amendment to the plan development to convert ground floor commercial suites to residential units with stipulated in the project report. And the understanding I have is that the pedestrian facing will remain as commercial, and they'll allow the apartments on the parking lot side. Just going to throw it out there and see what happens.
Okay, Eric Heikus made the motion, and I would read that as essentially what the staff recommendation
Yeah,
is.
correct. Thank you.
And Alicia seconded that motion. Comments on the motion, Alicia?
Oh,
I'm done. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Before you made the motion, my only comment was going to be potentially in the future, if it does become an undue burden, having retail that's not leased. I think it would be interesting to know your particular vacancy in the apartment, what your rates are, and if there's an ongoing wait list with those spaces. And I think it would be good to make the scale of, if in the future, to propose residential on the main floor to make the scale more consistent with if it was planned for residential. Right now the appearance is storefronts and doesn't necessarily have a residential feel for potential tenants. So that would just be a recommendation for the future, to if it makes sense to incorporate residential on the main floor.
Mr. Chair, if I could, for the motion maker, I think it's important to clarify, if this is your intent, that you're approving in part and denying in part. We call that an ape dip, by the way. You're denying those along the pedestrian street because it does not align with the previous approved plan development proposal and the existing elevations with all of the transparency of windows do not support residential units in those locations. That was a lot of the discussion. I want to make sure that we're aligning this with what got approved before versus the change. We seem to be having a dispute as to the language of the ordinance. I don't want that to be the reason why you're denying this request.
Does that work for the motion maker?
Yes.
Second? Okay. Haven Stuck.
Thank you. I'm quite familiar with the vacancy at the commercial and office space downtown, and concerned about, you know, this space remaining vacant. I waver on this, though. I can see the reason for additional living spaces downtown, and also the ordinance. I guess in the end, and maybe with one question I might have for staff, I can support the motion, but my question would, or maybe my suggestion would be that if the motion would pass, that the applicant could come back to us, say, in a year with a similar request on that frontage, and maybe at that point our decision might be different.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
Of course, whatever decision you do today, number one, will most likely be appealed to City Council, and Council will make the final decision. Or if Council upholds, if all of you do, or the majority of you align with the motion on the floor right now, they could come back next week with an alternate plan. May I take liberty to just say that in our office, we had a working session very recently. We understand the vacancy rates of our residential units are slight in our downtown. So we've been putting together an ordinance amendment that would change central business, urban commercial, and general commercial, that would, for the first time, put it in writing, according to the way we read the ordinance, to allow residential units on the ground floor, so long as the front-facing, the street-facing part of the building maintain that commercial component. Because we appreciate the statistics that we have, that are shared by Elevate as well, about the low vacancy rate in the downtown, and we're working towards that. We brought it to the Parking Advisory Board. They wanted us to pause on it because parking in our downtown area is becoming more of an issue.
Even? All right, so the motion on the floor is to in part approve, in part deny the amendment to the plan development.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
Before we take that, act on that motion, we need you to extend the meeting.
Oh, good call.
Motion to extend the meeting. Pass on 5.
Vince made the motion. Eric Heikus seconded the motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. Further discussion on the motion to in part approve, in part deny on this amendment to the plan development? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carried with Mike Kwasny's opposition. Item number 7.
Good morning again. Item number 7 before you is a conditional use permit to allow an oversized garage. This is one that you have seen a couple of times. This was originally presented at the April 24th Planning Commission meeting, continued at the last Planning Commission meeting, to this meeting. So this is a conditional use permit up on Skyline Drive. We are looking at 3319 Skyline Drive, currently zoned Park Forest District. Future land use is forest conservation, and Skyline Drive is a collector street. So this was presented originally. They are proposing a 40-foot by 46-foot detached garage to be placed southeast of the existing dwelling. This will have 2 double-car garage doors, and access to this will be extended from the existing driveway to the single-family dwelling. When you originally saw this, you saw it in the format that you see down here on the left-hand side of your screen. The applicant has since come back and done some significant changes to try to improve the aesthetics of this garage, and really done a lot of compromising with regard to trying to make this detached garage work. One of the the compromises that has been made is they are going to shift this further south so that it will be further screened and shielded by this existing row of trees here along Skyline Drive. They're also going to cut it into the hillside to drop the elevation of it approximately 10 feet to provide some better screening of that hillside as well. They are going to be planting some landscaping trees, as you can see along both sides here of the driveway that's going to extend to the garage. They are also looking at potentially putting some trees on the north side of the existing driveway to the single-family dwelling, again, providing additional screening of this garage. They do still have to meet the 40-foot setback requirement to that south property line per the regulations of the Park Forest District, but cutting it into that hillside, dropping that elevation, and further screening it behind those existing trees and with the landscaping does significantly improve the street view impact that this will have, particularly when you're driving south on Skyline Drive, which was one of the major concerns in the beginning. Additionally, as you can see with the revised elevation here, they have done some significant changes to the facade. So the facade will now be that stone front. As you see, they have added that awning on the front side to allow for some varied roof lines. They have changed the side elevations as well to add some residential looking windows. And so they've made significant compromises, made some improvements to this. The staff feels now that this aligns much better with the residential character of the property and of the neighborhood, and the screening will reduce that street view impact. Still is not recessed behind the dwelling, which has been that historical requirement of the Planning Commission, but because of the changes that have been made, staff does recommend that if you determine that the garage does meet the criteria for an oversized garage and is an appropriate location, given the unique circumstances of this property, that staff does have some stipulations included that would be included with any sort of approval. I'll stand for any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. We've got a couple speaker request forms from the applicant and the agent, but questions for staff ahead of that? No? All right, we'll go to TJ Witanowicz.
Good morning, Commission. TJ Witanowicz. I'm glad I'm not here to ask for apartments on the first floor of our complex by South Walmart, and I won't. So that's great. We made a bunch of compromises on this. They're going to build a really nice garage. If you drive down Skyline, I don't know if you guys all got an opportunity to go up there. You are looking at a power line. Now you'll see a garage with the power line. If you're looking straight west, this doesn't affect any of the views west, which is where all the views are from this house and garage. They would make it look really nice. It would look exactly like that picture. I know there'd be stipulations with maybe planting some trees and so forth. But yeah, we did a lot of changes to help suffice the comments that were made last time, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. Joshua Coles.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joshua Coles. Again, thanks for kind of tabling this and letting us kind of do some revisions. And I just kind of want to say our goal of the entire revisions of this and kind of going forward and landscaping and trees is going to be to block as much of the garage as possible, but also preserving the views west and not, putting, 20, 30-foot trees to block this, but that would also, therein blocking all of your views west, from the area around the driveway. So our goal of moving this back is to conceal it as much as possible, drop that elevation, conceal it as much as possible, but then also put trees and landscaping, again, to conceal the garage, but also preserve the westward views on Skyline for those walking or biking or just driving up there.
Thank you. Eric Heikus.
Does anyone remember, thank you, Mr. Chair. Does anyone remember Jerry Maguire, the film? Well, I really appreciate the changes made and your flexibility and also your panache. This is great. But you had me at dropping it by 10 feet. That's a significant impact of the visual corridor and also the fabric that we're considering. So you had me at the drop. So thank you.
Vince?
Thank you, Chair. I agree that you did some work on this, a lot of work, and my condolences to your wife. I know she likes the color white, but she did a magnificent job in updating this. I really appreciate all the work you put into it, both of you. Thank you.
Karen Ballman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I agree with the other comments. I think the change in the building itself looks fantastic. That's a lot better than the white. I just really like that. And I agree with the landscaping, especially the one that had the trees on the north side of the main driveway. It really makes a difference in what you're looking at as you're driving down. And so I really appreciate all the landscaping and the changes that you've made. You've done a great job, and I appreciate it.
Alicia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I missed in person last time when this was discussed, but watched some of it, and I think this is a really good example of working with the group to make changes. I like the drop, and it's a beautiful site, and it's 10 acres, so it seems like there'd be ways to accommodate the requirements, but it's really tricky with the topography. So I think this, this was a good compromise, and it's part of my biking route, so I kind of enjoy that little shed thing that's there, but it'll be cool to slowly pass by it as this is being built as well.
Unfortunately, we'll have to take that little shed down. It's a bit of a safety hazard. My kids are playing in it now.
Haven?
Thank you. I also really like the changes that have been made. I guess my question would be, I like the way this is proposed, the way it looks. What authority does the city have, let's say 5 or 6 years from now, there's some damage to the building or damage to the trees that are blocking the view of this? What authority would we have at that point to go back and say, no, this is the way it was approved and this is the way it must be maintained?
Vicki?
Mr. Chair, you're approving this oversized garage specific to location, structural or elevation submittals for consideration, landscaping promises. All of that has got to be maintained. Even if let's say they do put in landscaping and it dies 10 years later and we receive a complaint from a neighbor, we would go back to this conditional use permit and remind this property owner, no, wait, you've got to maintain trees along this section of the structure. So the stipulations of approval do give us the tools in the toolbox to ensure that what gets approved is what gets built and maintained over time.
Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As noted by all the others here, I think that they did a marvelous job of redoing this. And I like to address that I think they have a respect for the area that they live and that they want to maintain the view for other people driving Skyline Drive. And I respect that very much. So I think that they will do great by it. I think to Haven's point, I could see where they move on and somebody else moves there, things could change, and hopefully they have the same kind of respect as these people do for this area that they live in. And most of the people in Skyline, they do have that, so.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Vince?
Motion to approve for the conditional use permit pursuant to the Rapid City Municipal Code 175403E. Then this request may be approved with the stipulations provided by the staff.
All right, Vince made the motion. Mike Kwasny seconded that motion. I'm just going to chime in, comment. I totally agree with the motion. I went and looked at this property, and I just want to say this for the record. My concern on oversized garages is, as staff noted, I always want them to be recessed behind the house. In this particular instance, that's not the right place for it. This location is the right place, and the fact that the applicant's willing to dig it down to reduce the elevation and also put a low slope roof on it, that figures into my vote. So again, we see a lot of these, so I feel like I need to describe differences between this one and the next one, so to speak. So that said, any other comments on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8.
Thank you. Item number 8, this is the major amendment to a conditional use permit to expand the on-sale liquor in conjunction with the outdoor music events. This is the application that goes in tandem with the variance request that we heard this morning. So we did go through that pretty extensively in terms of what they are wanting to do. This would be the major amendment that would allow them to be able to expand that on-sale liquor use out into that outdoor area for the music events. Again, staff had the same concerns with regard to this. In addition, the on-sale liquor establishment requirements do note the proximity to a religious worship facility, a school, a park, or a playground. There is a religious assembly facility approximately 400 feet northwest of this property. And again, we noted the proximity to the residential areas in terms of buffering for that on-sale liquor use, especially in an outdoor environment. Again, this outdoor area would be surrounded by 4-foot safety fencing if it were approved. So ultimately, based on the same concerns that we discussed this morning with regard to the variance, staff is recommending denial of this major amendment to the conditional use permit to expand the on-sale liquor in conjunction with those outdoor music events. Again, with most of those same criteria apply to this as would apply to the variance request. So I will stand for any questions. The applicant is still in the audience as well.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this one from the commission? Vicki?
The extra burden that's put upon you in this consideration is that you denied the parking variance. So even though they have indicated that they would work on securing parking agreements with Boyd's and Heil, the one at Boyd's, they would need a variance that parking is in excess of 300 feet of the front door of their business by means of using the street right-of-way distance location. Having said that, though, the mitigation of the noise and controlling the customers parking correctly, and if they walk onto the site, are they going to stop them and say, nope, no, go move from that property, we don't have permission to use that parking, move to this property. It's back to that full discussion. It's just an added burden for you since the variance has already been denied.
Eric Higas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have as much issue with this item as I did with the variance for the parking. It's the life safety aspect that I was concerned with. So just going to add that to discussion.
All right, anything else from the commission? Haven?
Maybe just to add to that, the way I understand it is that they could expand with an application here. They could expand their liquor license area to include more space outside of the building. However, they're limited to taking up not more than 2 parking places, the way I read it, to stay aligned with the ordinance, which I don't think that's the application here today, but that would be my suggestion. If there is a way that they could establish some or expand their outside area, they could come back with a request that they modify the area where they're allowed to serve alcohol.
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
the difficulty is they do have 2 extra parking spots, but when they expand that outside use, they are taking up parking, and that expanded outside use triggers additional parking at a ratio of 11 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. So they've done a great job. They've built out to the maximum that's allowed. Any additional outdoor area or any structural expansion going forward, they will have to secure additional parking, either by acquiring additional property on an adjacent, you can see there's some undeveloped land, they could potentially plat that into it and expand their parking, or they could secure shared parking agreements reviewed and approved by our attorney's office. Those get recorded at Register of Deeds. The city is a party to them, so they can never be dissolved without the city's concurrence, and they would have to meet the criteria to qualify for shared parking, which means they have to be within 300 feet of the front door of the business.
Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I have a question on if they were able to, let's say that they were to have that field behind them and they put a stage there. If they were to have access to that, they'd still have their parking. And they limited, I guess I don't want to design this for them, but if they limited it till 8 or 8:30 at night, I would assume after that people might go inside, as well as the band could go inside. They might have the opportunity to make this happen. I think it's something that we would love to be able to help them employ their 60 employees. We'd love to be able to help them figure out a way to make this happen. It's just a struggle when you get close to a neighborhood like this. I struggle with the noise. That's what I struggle with. And you get 9:30 and maybe it gets to 10 o'clock by the time you're able to shut it down. I think the control is going to be tough. So there might be some things that maybe you want to come back with a different plan. And I don't know if we want to allow them to think that through and give them a chance to come back with a plan. This might be something that they could give a little more thought to and see where they go forward on this. Is that possible, Vicki, or?
Well, the difficulty is Horizon Properties LLC owns that property, and we are not for sure what their plans are. There'd have to be pavement, other improvements on this to get those trucks and stage in there. It would still trigger the same amount of additional parking, whether it's on this site or off this site. It would be closer to the residential area. So if what you're really saying is, if they could come up with an alternate design, potentially on partnering with another property owner that would meet more of the parking requirement on site, that's something they could consider, but we probably want to ensure that they're not getting any closer to the residential area.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to give options. I'm not trying to plan, and our job is not to plan for other businesses, but obviously they have concerns for their employees. They have concerns. They want to be able to expand their business during a downtime, and we are definitely not one to want to make businesses have problems. We'd love to be able to help businesses. So I just think maybe this plan maybe isn't the right one, but maybe there's still opportunity here, and if they give some more thought to it. I hope they can figure out something.
Eric Hikas?
I'm going to follow. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to follow up on Mike's comment. We're not up here to redesign things, but I think I see something. So do you see the lane in the aerial here? The lane on the lower portion of the site? That thing's massive. It's probably 75 or 80 feet wide from the look of it here. No, 60 for sure. Is there a way to reconfigure the parking redesign it, maybe do some 45-degree stuff or whatever. I hate to suggest that, but so that you could get more parking spaces out of the site. Just throwing that out there. I don't know the backstory or anything on the site, and it's hard to say, but just an observation. That's a massive lane, and maybe we could do something a little more efficient there.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Kip measured it, it's 52 feet.
52, okay.
But for today, your options would be to deny it based on the variance and the fact that they've not demonstrated that they've got legal adequate parking since the variance wasn't granted. You could continue it and let them come back with an alternate plan and try to secure parking agreements and maybe seek a variance to the distance for the parking at Boyd's. If it is determined that Boyd's has additional parking, that they're going to lock down their doors at any time that the guests start arriving for this event on Thursday nights. But if the decision is to go ahead and just follow suit with the variance and not align with the plan as presented, the applicants could go back. Number one, they could appeal the conditional use permit to City Council. They can't appeal the variance. Going into council, they would have to secure additional parking and demonstrate where that's going to be legally. But the variance is only appealable to a circuit court of law. If they exhaust those remedies, they could come back with an alternate plan. You're probably still going to have the police voicing concern that whenever you have outdoor music in a residential area, they're going to get bombarded with noise complaints, and that becomes problematic for them.
Vince?
No, I appreciate Mike and Eric's comments, because that's where we're concerned about your business and your employees. I mean, we just had an issue earlier where there not enough the retail spaces don't fit the people that want to work in them or buy and use them for businesses. And you have a business, you know it's effective and it's exciting to know that you want to continue to grow it and take care of those 60+ employees and yourself. Yeah, I just wish that there was a better way to go forward, but based on the parking and without knowing anything about the noise mitigation, it's hard to move forward on it at this point.
All right, anything else from commission? Okay. Mike Gallagher made the motion to deny the major amendment for a conditional use permit. And Karen seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we deny this, they can come back with a different plan in 2 weeks?
Mr. Chair, because the variance was denied, they'll have to identify how they're securing parking that meets city parking regulation requirements. Then they could come back with an alternate plan that would then be presented to you. Again, it would be a major amendment to their conditional use permit to expand the on-sale to the exterior of the building.
Okay, thank you.
All right, motion on the floor is to deny. Any further comments? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment that this does go to the City Council, the major amendment. If it's denied, it does not.
It can be appealed though, right?
It requires that it be appealed within 7 calendar days of your action.
Right.
The hardship is, since the parking was denied, that's the first requirement for the CUP to get acted upon, is they have to show that they've got sufficient parking. So they need to address that first. And whether they appeal it to council and they get that addressed before the council meeting, or they get that addressed and then come back with an alternate plan for your board, the parking needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just say I'm going to end up voting for this motion to deny, not because I don't support the project, just without that parking variance, what we have before us doesn't seem viable, and I hate that, but that just is where we're at. And I think there might be, I'd like to think there would be a different plan that would make this happen. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just being completely transparent, I wanted to inform the board that I was a previous business partner with the Fuelings. I've always found them to be very diligent and have appreciated the past enterprises that we've been involved in, which it actually was a entertainment enterprise that where alcohol was involved. That being 12 years ago when we separated as partners, I do still feel an obligation to abstain from the vote. But I would encourage Mrs. Fueling to come back with a revised plan if that is something that you desire to do, because opportunities such as this certainly lend value to our communities, and I'm sure that they would take the steps necessary to ensure that it was done well and not to disturb the neighbors to any extent. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Absent any other comment, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9.
Mr. Chair, if you will buzz Jessica in over there,
Oh.
she's going to present from over there, and I'm going to run the computer.
Gotcha. Here you
Sorry
go.
about that. I appreciate it. So I'm going to present number 9 and number 10 together. It's a rezone and a conditional use permit, and they're pretty, it's kind of like the variance and the conditional use permit we heard earlier. They're intrinsically tied together, and you would need to, the rezone would need to be approved in order to allow for the conditional use, part of the conditional use permit. Granted, the rezone request does go to council for final decision, so I'll just make that clarification. So both 25 rezone 10 and 25 UR 17 are for this property at 2512 Marlin Drive within the Marlin Drive Commercial Park. You'll notice that it is a split zoning. So currently the property is zoned general commercial. The future land use there is employment, if you want to go just back. And I'll note that employment category, actually general commercial is not necessarily a supported use in there or zoning district in there, but it is secondary uses that we consider appropriate for the employment designation. The employment designation is geared more toward office uses, but this area was rezoned in 2016 to allow for commercial use. It was identified that along that Elkville Road corridor fronting Marlin Drive, that this was an appropriate zoning district kind of scheme for this area. I'll also note that along Marlin Drive to that west end, and you can go to the street one now because I want to kind of show you so toward that west terminus, there's industrial zone properties and heavy industrial and light industrial uses. As you get to the middle, toward that Benelli Drive where this property is at, there's more commercial uses. And then we start getting into residential, just 2 properties past Benelli Drive. And then there's the residential all to the kind of southeast of there along Minnesota. The commercial continues up along Marlin Drive where it's adjacent to Elkville Road. So it's kind of the zoning scheme that's been approved and how we've planned it to develop. A lot of the properties here are not currently developed, so just keep that in mind as well. The property where we had it outlined and this shaded area is proposed to be light industrial district. So the light industrial district would be to the rear of the property facing the Elkville Road section. The front would remain general commercial. You still have that general commercial saddled on either side of this. There is light industrial across Marlin Drive. The purpose of this request is there's a business that is trying to locate on this property that has a couple of different uses. It's a unique kind of operational plan. Primarily a kennel, dog kenneling, overnight and daycare facilities. They offer other services for dogs such as grooming. There's some retail aspect where you can buy treats and other things. as well as maybe photography and other services associated with dogs. The portion that's proposed to remain general commercial is for the purpose of an on-sale kind of recreational social event type venue within the kennel. It would be physically separated by a glass on a wall and a door, so that the kennel use, which is only allowed in light industrial, and the on-sale use, which is only allowed in general commercial, would not mix and match. So that's the approach to that. There's also, it looks kind of the same as the dog runs that are on the exterior side, but in the general commercial portion, just a little to the left there, on the light, sorry, and south of there, just, yeah. There is a patio. It looks similar to the other dog runs, but there would be a kind of fenced patio there as well. So if we keep going through, I'll kind of get through the touch points. We worked with the applicant significantly with the parking aspect of this because kennels do not have a parking rate. A couple of the other uses in this property do, such as the on-sale liquor establishment and the retail and the grooming and office aspects. And so in calculating the square footage of those that had them, we got to 30. And then the rest of the kennel was calculated based on how many kennels they have. I think there's a total of about 140 when you're counting both daycare and overnight. They're anticipating, because there might be overlap with people having multiple pets, 45 to 60 persons during peak hour periods, and that's a 2 hour between, I believe it's, are we at 7 and 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. is when you see the most traffic, and there are people dropping off before and after work. They've got it so that drop-offs really don't take a lot of time at all, and so you're coming in, you're either handing off or walking in and dropping off a couple minutes at a time. So running the calculations for how many they could possibly have, the remaining about 35. So we've got 5 full-time staff that we accounted for, and 30 parking spaces for the kennel drop-off. That's consistent also if I looked back at a few kennels that we've permitted over the years, and there's one kind of off, I think it's, what is it, Campbell and Creek, that similar amount of parking spaces there. And so parking is sufficient. They are meeting the ADA, all the spaces meet the size requirements, and they do have kind of a system that allows people to go around. So we worked really closely with them to get this parking plan, and staff has found that that is sufficient. If you go to the next one, setbacks and landscaping also meeting the requirements. I'll note we've kind of discussed a few times with them how to orient this building, try to get it as far away from the residential areas as possible, and have buffering using, there's some evergreen trees on either side. There's some shrubbery on the front as well, buffering from both the front of the building, but also the on-sale area that would take place outside, and grassing the rest of it. So they are just meeting the requirements of those altogether. If we go to the floor plan, you can kind of see how this is laid out based on the zoning. So I'm sorry that they keep flipping orientation as well, but the lobby side, so the right-hand side, that's facing Marlin Drive, and that's that on sale. They're calling it kind of a concessions area. They would have pour your own beer and hold kind of social events there. Since we were counting the parking for the whole on sale area as a rate, I incorporated that they would just hold social events in that area, so we didn't tack on any extra parking for that one. But all of the rest of the area, there's some offices in the grooming and the lobby, which will have the retail. Those were considered as part of the parking rates. The rest of the facility was just looked at the operational plan to determine that that parking was sufficient. So with the conditional use permit and the rezone is necessary in order to allow the kennel. And it's portioned off again to maintain an area that would allow on sale. As I mentioned, on sale is not allowed in light industrial, kennels are not allowed in general commercial. There is not a zoning district that allows both. And so this was how they've mapped it to be able to have those uses in the same building while they're still physically separated within the building as well. On the zoning side, I've noted the issues. It's not consistent with the future land use. There is flexibility in future land use, as I mentioned, when it was rezoned to general commercial, that there's some uses that are consistent and acceptable in that area. For the conditional use permit side, there's 2 uses that are being considered under the conditional use permit. That's the kennel and the on sale. So we're approving those with one motion, but they're separate since they are in different zoning districts and can't be combined. So I'll just make that clarification as well. In the findings of the criteria required for the on sale facility, since it's in a commercial environment, there's a microbrewery a little bit to the west here. There's not an overconcentration of on-sale uses in the area. It's sufficiently buffered. They did the landscaping as well from kind of residential and other sensitive uses. And so the on-sale aspect of it appears to meet the criteria of the conditional use permit. And there's not impacts necessarily anticipated from that use. On the kennel side, we can assume there are outdoor areas here. Noise, odors associated with pets are going to be part of this consideration. There is residential areas in a higher topography as well that have views of this facility to keep in mind that may be impacted. The applicant has put together, and they also provided a letter today in their operational plan, and they're in the audience to speak to it later as well. They've provided kind of mitigation measures in order to lessen the impacts related to noise and odors that are going to be associated with the kennel portion of this property. Those tend to be things that are more, they're not as scientific in nature, concrete as you could, we can't say, you can't install something necessarily. You would install physical barriers, soundproofing, so that helps with the noise on the inside. We'll have to remember that the exterior, those are fences, they're going to be opaque wood. They did try to put the landscaping there to kind of buffer on either side as well. So that's what they've taken to be able to deal with the outside noise. They're limiting to 2 groups of 15 dogs. They're also proposing to kind of keep the dogs in groups associated with their tendencies, so if we have ones that bark more, maybe they go out by themselves so that they're not distracted by other dogs and causing noise issues. And so those mitigation measures are more on the operational side. They're trying to do things, training, looking at dog temperament to try and lessen the impacts. So there may still be impacts. It's just they're doing their best to mitigate them as they can. And again, the interior at least would have soundproofing. They do have limits on the hours that they would let dogs outside. I believe the outer limit is, of course I don't have it here. It's either 8 or 9. But I think it's 8 a.m. Yeah, they do have 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. outside as well. So I think that was less than what I had originally gotten from them. There would also be, just a note, some dogs training. The reason that there are multiple outdoor runs is they could be individually training dogs during that time, but they wouldn't really, they try to stagger them so they can't, get distracted by each other as well. Obviously, they want the dogs to be focused on the training at the time. So they do have protocols. They also mentioned in the letter that they submitted today that motion detection, so that if there's things happening at night, they can be alerted to it and try to get the dogs to calm down as well. So we're recognizing there's still likely impacts related to noise and odors. The applicant has done their best to provide mitigation measures to lessen those impacts. Again, recognizing this is going to be developing as a commercial area. Some of those commercial uses may have outdoor activities that could be impacted in the future. We can't analyze that without knowing what they are, so we think of them ahead that they may or may not be able to locate there because of this use. So keeping that in mind. And that is the staff recommendation on both of these. we've left up to the planning commission, recognizing that there is that criteria and issues aligned with this proposed use. The rezone is really for the purpose of allowing the kennel. And so if it's felt that the kennel is doing what they need to do to fit into a commercial area, we've left it up to the planning commission to decide if they meet that criteria.
All right.
Oh,
thank
let's, actually, I do have some pictures of the site. And so sorry, that is the fencing. Keep going. They put up their signs. This is just to show you how undeveloped this area is. This is looking directly at the site. Go to the next one. We're looking, that would be more east. You can start to see that residential, how close it is, and then the houses that are up on the hill as well. So that's where our concern with the noise is going. If the noise travels that direction and it's hitting, it could reverberate off that topography as well. This is the property across the street that's zoned general ag right now. And then if you go one more, these are the industrial properties. There's still a couple commercial zone properties on the, I guess we're looking at the right side here. It's the portion of between Marlin and Elkvale Drive. But the other side of the street is industrial, and then down the street is industrial. So this is kind of where the commercial really starts to ramp up. So it would be inserting that light industrial zoning district in the middle of a couple commercial zoning districts as well. But
Mr. Chair, if I could just pull a summary together.
Yeah.
By the way, Kelly Buchholz, hi, previous city employee. It was so great to see him when the folks walked in to talk about this. Kenneling is, we had a discussion several years ago, and I don't know that any of you were sitting on the planning commission at the time, but the question that was brought forward is, should we allow kenneling in general commercial? And the overwhelming decision of the planning commission and the city council was no, because there's just too many uses in the outdoor area for general commercial. Think of all the outdoor patios, the music festival that we just talked about for a very long time this morning. And the decision was no. They're already allowed in industrial, they're allowed in general ag. That's where the dog kennel should be. So in noting that, that put these folks in a position where they had to take a general commercial strip and introduce light industrial. In addition, they wanted to preserve a little bit of general commercial because they want to have on-sale in connection with the kenneling. So it's a very unique, kind of like the canine facility at the mall, but they're not overnighting. The fact that they are having 90 dogs overnighted in the kenneling, and the daycare would have up to a maximum of 50, that's just a lot of dogs on the property at one time. So we wanted to bring it to you with the recognition that while all of the land that's primarily undeveloped in this area is pretty much owned by Zanstras, and there's the ones that are potentially selling this to these folks, we're not getting any pushback on this at this time. They are going in first, so it is kind of a buyer beware. If someone were to come in later to develop, this kennel is going to be established. Typically, when we're in a general commercial, we wouldn't be supporting this. So we bring it to you in a way to show that it is undeveloped. They're going to be first one in. They have taken a lot of great measures to mitigate this, and they have a lot of experience in dog kenneling, and I think that resonates well in their letter of intent. Sorry that we couldn't just bring you a solid recommendation. We didn't know if there'd be anyone in the audience today from the neighborhood, but we leave it upon you to make the final decision. Thank you.
Thanks. And this is one, I don't have a speaker request form from the applicants. If you want to say anything, please just signal and come on up. But you have to identify yourself.
Thank you. Gary Westmark with Baumyo. First of all, thank you, Jessica and Vicki. You've been instrumental in trying to get this across, so thank you very much. I submitted comments this morning, and I'll stand by those. My thing that I want to get across is that we've worked really hard to mitigate any things that might happen with this facility. We've been consulting with PAWS, which is, I would say, probably the best run dog daycare and resort in the state, probably. They're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. For 2 years, we also have friends in Milwaukee that run one, and there has been one complaint. Those are both in cities, actually, in the city limits, and they run perfectly. And this is really, I want to point out about best practices, I think. You know, we've put the turf in, right? The commercial turf with the drainage rocks below that and then the sand to prevent odors, and then it's about screening. screening the dogs before they even get there. So, you know, we've really planned this well, I think. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you. From the commission, Mike Kwasny?
You know, I saw this plan here, and I had a vision in my mind, and I'm surprised Eric hasn't brought it up yet. They have these pictures of these dogs playing cards and drinking, and I'm like, this just fit right in with it. It's kind of an interesting concept, and I guess the two together, it looks like you've made all the plans that are necessary to try to mitigate anything that would be a problem. And I appreciate what you've done. I'm assuming the traffic, so that this traffic, people will be going out there. It's close enough to town to where you're not way out, and people will still be able to get to it. So I don't really see a big problem with where this is. I guess I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay. So we're attempting to consider 9 and 10 together, correct? Is that good with you, Mike? In your
Yeah, that would
motion?
be great.
And you include the stipulations on number 10?
Yep.
The staff stipulations?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Vince was the second on that motion. Further comments, Mike?
You might want to get that picture and hang it up in there somewhere.
We've thought about it. We've got some ideas.
I can't help myself. Dogs gambling is a step too far. I'm not going to vote for any dogs gambling. No, sorry. Jeff?
Don't give us ideas, please.
I didn't see a poker room included in the master plan. Pat Roseland and I were talking before the meeting today about how much kenneling has changed over the years. My family was involved in kenneling back in the 60s, and I looked it up really quick. It's staggering to think that last year in the United States, $150 billion was attributed to care of pets.
Yep.
So this industry has changed, and it is apparent to me that the ownership has worked with the city to ensure mitigation of areas of kenneling that historically have been of concern, and job well done.
Thank you.
And so I just wanted to offer that. So I would be voting in support of this. Thank you.
Haven?
Thank you. I just wanted to put that one slide up that shows the zoning in that area on both sides of Marlin. Yes. Just to note, we're be inserting some light industrial in that string of general commercial lots. I believe you indicated that those other lots that are general commercial between Elkvale and Marlin are still owned by Zanstra's.
Vicky?
I can't vouch that everyone is, but I know the adjacent ones are. The majority of this that's undeveloped is still owned by the family.
Thank you. And I do note from this slide also that apparently there was one of the lots to the west of this was changed from, and it might have been light industrial originally, but it's now light industrial, the third lot to the west of this, shown on this slide. I'm not sure I see any issue with it, but I do note that we'll now have another lot in the middle of the general commercial that's zoned light industrial, and obviously that could open up different uses to this property in the future because it has been rezoned to light industrial.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
I think our intent is, at this point, you're right. I mean, we're edging out additional general commercial for light industrial. I think if we can preserve those lots that are directly north of the lots shown in pink, those are our residential areas, and everything yellow behind it is residential. At least if we can preserve that area for general commercial and then transition to whoever might be interested in standing up a building. This is still a fairly undeveloped area. It's remote. It's been slow going in these lots developing. And so we've had to bring forward some flexible recommendations to you and creative designs just in an effort to continue promoting advancement of this subdivision. We want to preserve, though, the general commercial that's closer to the residential.
Thank you. I think that answers my thoughts. I was just pointing this out. I was not in opposition to it. In fact, I'm going to support the motion.
All right, any other questions or comments on the motion? Well, all those in favor of approving 9 and 10, including the stipulations with number 10, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the end of the agenda today. Anything to add from the staff, Vicki?
We should have served food.
Yeah.
Thank you for hanging in there. You had a lot of very, very difficult items before you today. We appreciate that you vet them as fully as you do. There may be one, maybe two, that are appealed to City Council. I hope that council members will take the time to go back and view this meeting. It's recorded online. I think you guys asked some great questions and kind of really came at every application from multiple directions before you made your final decision. So well done.
Pat Roseland? Thanks, Pat. That's really nice. When a city councilman says we have a difficult job, I'm just really not sure I believe that their definition's the same. But.
Mr. Chair, I must add, though, that there are times when these meetings are getting long and someone's getting up and they're reading us articles and going through factual data. It's like, where is that 3-minute clock? But then I think, I bet you they're thinking the same thing when I've got the microphone on, so.
Eric Ikus.
Appreciate it. This was a tough meeting for me too, and I just want everyone to know in the back of this mind, there's definitely the use of the creative side of my brain, but many of you don't know, there's also a very linear side that I use that is process, right? And I think a lot of times where I come and kind of check back in with myself and sometimes this group is like, what is really the process here? What are we really acting upon? And so it's easy to get into the weeds. It's easy to get into the emotion and all the other, but sometimes you just have to say, you know, this was a planned development. That's the intent of it. We approved it previously. You know, that sometimes is where I come to really reach my decisions. So I just wanted to share that. So, and it's tough, right? Because sometimes we want to overturn process, and so then you have to realize, well, if we're going to make these changes, we got to go way back and start, you know, that's a rezone or whatever it is. So just throwing that out.
Vince?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes. Well, last meeting I found out about these close-ups, and so I even mentioned that. And then I'm finding out I'm not getting paid for those close-ups. So. All right, thank you. Good job, folks.
All right, anything else? That's what Karen had it. Vince seconded the move to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.